The iron gates groaned. A soul trembled on the precipice of oblivion. There was no scale here, no kindly saint weighing deeds against misdeeds. Here, in the abyss, all sins held equal weight. A whispered lie bore the same infernal price as a life stolen. The wages of sin were not negotiable. They were absolute, they were eternal. No hierarchy existed in this kingdom of torment. No circles, no rankings, no preferential treatment for the moderately wicked. Here, the flames of damnation licked at the souls of murderers and liars with equal fervor. A king who abused his power found no solace above a peasant who stole a loaf of bread. For in the face of eternity, all transgressions were but facets of the same obsidian heart of darkness. Scarlet writhed upon a bed of obsidian shards. Her skin, once smooth as alabaster, was now marred with bloody welts. Heavy chains forged in the heart of a dying star bound her wrists and ankles. Each movement, fueled by a desperate yearning, only tightened the shackles, tearing deeper into her flesh.
My sin was lust. A hunger for flesh and insatiable thirst for pleasure had consumed me in life. Now, in death, my desires are a cruel jest. Phantom touches, ghostly whispers of past lovers dance around me, forever out of reach.
Scarlet screamed. Not in pain, though it was ever present. She screamed for the touch of another, for a taste of the forbidden fruit that had led her to this torment. But hers was a thirst that could never be slaked, a hunger that would never be sated. Only the cold, hard truth of her damnation remained. Jimbo coughed, a dry rasp in the silence. He clawed at the walls of his prison, a pit overflowing with gold coins. Each coin was etched with the face of a life he had exploited, a deal he had twisted, a fortune he had amassed at the cost of another's misery.
Greed was my downfall. The insatiable desire for more, the belief that happiness could be bought and sold, led me here. Now, surrounded by the glittering trophies of my avarice, I feel only a bone-deep emptiness.
The coins shifted under his touch, their cold metallic surfaces mocking his plight. He could hoard them for eternity, count them, arrange them, yet they brought him no solace. No amount of gold could buy his way out of this prison. No amount of wealth could fill the gaping maw of his own making. Yatoki roared, a sound that echoed through the desolate plains of hell. His skin, cracked and blistered, radiated an infernal heat. His hands, balled into fists, dripped with molten rage, a testament to the fury that had consumed him in life.
Wrath was my sin, a raging fire that consumed all reason and left only destruction in its wake. Now I am trapped in a cage of my own making, the echoes of my past rages tormenting me without end.
He lashed out at phantoms, shadows of those he had wronged, those he had hurt, those he had destroyed with his anger danced just beyond his reach. He lunged, he roared, he raged, but his fury was as futile as the wind. It could touch nothing, change nothing. Only the burning agony of his own creation remained.
The serpent's gaze.
Thrisha lay curled in a fetal position, her body racked with sobs.
My eyes, once bright and full of life, are now dull and glazed over with a film of despair.
A serpent, its scales the color of envy, coiled around her, its forked tongue flicking against her cheek, whispering poisonous doubts and resentments into her ear.
Envy is the serpent's venom, and it flows freely through my veins.
She saw only what she lacked, felt only the sting of others' good fortune, the injustice of their happiness.
Each whispered word from the serpent is a barb to my soul, reminding me of my perceived inadequacies.
She saw visions of those she had envied, their lives playing out before her like cruel parodies of joy.
Their laughter is a torment, their successes a fresh wound to my already festering spirit.
The serpent tightened its grip. There was no escape from this self-inflicted torment.
Trapped in stagnation, Billman sat in a rocking chair, his eyes vacant, his body slack. Cobwebs clung to his limbs and dust covered his ragged clothes like a shroud. Time had lost all meaning in this desolate corner of hell. There were no days, no nights, only the endless, suffocating present.
Sloth had been his sin. Not the sloth of laziness, but the sloth of indifference. He had let life pass him by, content to exist in a state of perpetual apathy. Now his punishment was a chilling reflection of his choices. He sat, unable to move, to speak, to even think a coherent thought. The world outside his prison continued to turn, but he was frozen, trapped in a moment that stretched on for eternity. The rocking chair creaked back and forth, a monotonous rhythm that underscored the utter emptiness of his existence.
The crushing weight of glory. Shauna stood on a pedestal of crumbling marble, her back bent under the weight of a crown of thorns. Each thorn pulsed with a cold, white light, illuminating her with a mockery of glory. Her beauty, once her pride, was now a grotesque mask, twisted by the constant agony.
Pride had been her downfall, the belief in her own inherent superiority. She had craved adoration, demanded recognition, and trampled on anyone foolish enough to stand in her way. Now she was forced to bear the weight of her own self-importance, the crushing burden of her arrogance. The thorns dug deeper into her skull, each pulse a reminder of the soul she had crushed beneath her heel. The pedestal crumbled beneath her feet, a testament to the fragile nature of the acclaim she had so desperately craved. There was no one left to worship her, no one to envy her, only the echoes of her own shattered ego. Salvius lay sprawled on a banquet table, his stomach distended and grotesque, food, rotting and putrid, spilled around him, a feast for a king who could no longer taste, no longer feel the satisfaction of a full belly. Gluttony was his sin, an insatiable hunger that went far beyond the need for sustenance. He had indulged in every excess, consumed the world around him until there was nothing left but a gnawing void. Now that void was all that remained. He reached for a plate of rancid meat, his fingers sinking into the putrid flesh. He stuffed it into his mouth, but the taste was ashes, the texture like sawdust. He chewed and swallowed, driven by a primal urge he could no longer control, only to find the hunger returning tenfold. His was a feast without end, a banquet of despair. The gates slammed shut, the sound echoing through the desolate plains. Scarlet, Jimbo, Yatoki, Trisha, Billman, Shauna, Salvius, all trapped, all equal in their damnation. There were no hierarchies in hell, no special considerations for the nature of their sins. Here, in this abyss, all transgressions carried the same weight, the same unbearable burden of eternity. For in the face of the infinite, the nuances of human failing faded to insignificance. Whether driven by lust or greed, by rage or envy, by sloth or pride, or by the basest of hungers, their destination was the same. The wages of sin were not measured in degrees of suffering, but in the sheer unbearable weight of forever.